Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for spending part of your Thursday afternoon with us. We have another gorgeous spring day here in Kansas, and we're super excited to share something new from ACEweb that we're going to be calling STORM, standing for Student Online Reporting Module. And Jason is with us today, and he's going to be sharing the ins and outs of this module. And you may hear from time to time, he may have Matthew or Stein chime in as well. As always, if you have questions or comments during Jason's presentation, just type a note in the chat box there, and Chuck or I will get back with that, and we may bring some of the
so far, so I think we're going to be sticking with it. So let's get right to it. So what does it do? With this first release of the module, it's going to grant your students the ability to download and print a PDF of their registration transcript, or print and download PDFs of certificates for the courses that they've taken. So to give you a better example, let's take a look at this through the eyes of a student. So what they'll do is they'll first log on to their account on ACEweb, and then from their My Account page, they're going to click that history link. I'm sure you're all familiar with this screen already. This is something we've had in there for a while that shows your current courses, completed courses. You can pay bills online, but there's a couple of new buttons now that you can see over on the right called My Certificates and My Transcript. So the first one we'll take a look at is the My Certificates. When your student clicks that, it's going to bring up a list of the courses that are eligible for that student to download and print a certificate of. So from this page, they would just choose whichever certificate and click that Get Certificate button, and that launches a new window that contains the PDF of that certificate. Now, most modern browsers are going to natively support viewing and printing PDFs, but we do need to throw the disclaimer out there that it is a PDF file format. So Adobe Acrobat is the creator, and you may need their software if you've got a really, really old PC. Now, if from the history page they click the My Transcript button, that's going to immediately open their registration transcript report. So again, it's going to open up into a new window, and it will also be a PDF and list the courses. Now, what you're looking at here is just a example of the default transcript report that we're going to be including in this initial release download. And I can already kind of hear your fingers working away asking questions, but bear with me for a few more slides because I think some of those are going to be answered. So let's take a look at some of the options and settings that you can configure with this module and basically what they do. So the first one we're going to look at is the ACEweb options, and there's really only two, and it's two new ACEweb INI entries, and they're called Report Transcript and Report Certificate. Now what these do is they're going to hold the value of the default report that you want to use for that particular feature. So for Report Certificate, you specify the name of an additional report in the certificates report area to be used as the default when your students go online and click My Certificates and then Get Certificate. Likewise, the transcript one is the name of the additional report in the transcripts reporting area that you want ACEweb to use by default when they click that My Transcript button. Now, I should note that you have to use additional reports in this field. This module does not support using the actual default report, so the nomenclature there is slightly confusing, but we'll explain that a little bit more here in a bit. So again, the initial release is going to include a sample default transcript and a sample default certificate, and they're going to be named exactly that. So if you want to have just kind of the out-of-the-box setup, then you would put these two values in those ACEweb INI settings. Now, entering a value in those settings is what toggles the feature to show the button on the My History page. So if you want the ability for your students to just be able to do certificates but not transcripts, then you would leave the transcript INI setting blank, and that would effectively hide that button on their history page. Now on the flip side, in Student Manager, let's look at some of the settings
that control. Yeah, just jumping in here, and this is Stein. If you are, the corollary of that is if you are not ready to deal with these, you can still install ACEweb 050, the latest release. Just leave those blank, and those buttons won't show on the page, so you don't have to worry about it until you're actually ready to go.
Correct. Okay, so on the Student Manager side, the first screen we're going to look at is the course screen, and we're all the way over on the ACEweb Info tab, so the same place that you set your data capture settings or your lag days, ACEweb Info tab of the course screen. The first field is called Web Certificate or CoWeb Cert, and it allows you to choose a different certificate to be used that will override the default one that we just set in that ACEweb INI setting. So this is useful because you can set a different certificate for each course in your system. You can have a different report for, however you wanted to do that. If you're hosting kids Fun in the Sun summer camp classes and you want to have like a graduation certificate, but you also host, power lineman certificate courses, you probably want to have some difference there. The next field on that same tab of the course screen is called Show on Web Transcript or CoWeb Tran. Now what this one does is it determines if registrations in this course are going to show up on a person's transcript when they click that My Transcript button. So again, you'd probably want to not include things like donation courses or membership courses when a person is viewing their transcript. So that's a pretty handy feature. And the last Student Manager configuration option is on the registration screen. So when a student enrolls in a course, there is a field called Get Web Certificate or RG Web Cert. What this does is if you have a non-zero value in this field, it's going to control whether the student can generate a certificate for this particular registration. So obviously by default, this is going to be a 0 or a no. And so you will then enable this registration to be eligible for the student to go and print their own certificate on ACEweb. It has, right now, it just has 3 basic settings: no, yes, and then yes stamp cert date. So that final one, if you put a value of 2 there, it's going to put the date, the current date, into that cert date field whenever that student goes online and prints that certificate or downloads that certificate. So that can be useful if you're checking up and seeing whether someone has got the certificate. Maybe then at that point you want to disable the ability for them to print it again. That's just one of those options. And again, this is the initial release of this feature, so there are some other things that are floating around as ideas right now. We obviously value you guys' feedback very much, so if you have ideas and suggestions, be sure to get those to your tech and he can pass them on, he or she. All right, so I know a lot of you right now are wondering, how can you customize your reports? And it should be noted that while this reporting system does use the report and modify screen from Student Manager when you're creating these reports, it doesn't have the same full function set that the Student Manager reporting system of images and things. And right now they may work in your Student Manager reports, but if your ACEweb server doesn't have access to that same shared drive, then images that you link in that same fashion aren't going to work for your ACEweb report. So what we're recommending at this point is that for any of your ACEweb certificates or transcript reports, when you want to have an image on it, that you copy that image into preferably a subfolder of your Student Manager folder, called images, and then link to that from, or link it on the report from that area. And that should solve most of the problems that you would run into with images. Now, the other customization option that a lot of you might see right out of the box is that the header of the transcript report might say something like your university name here or your phone number here. And that is because it's pulling from the default organization info fields from your main default student manager account. So there's two ways that you can fix that, basically. You could simply just open the report in Student Manager in modify mode and hard code those values, your university name, the address, phone number, hard code those as text on the report. Now, the other way to do it is to actually edit or create a www or ACEweb staff account in Student Manager. If you don't have it in there already, you just simply go to Tools, Password Maintenance, create that account, and then edit the preferences for that account. And then on that Org Defaults tab is where you fill in those blanks, because that's what that default report is going to be pulling from. It's going to be looking at those fields, title, department, address, line 1, so on and so forth. So I would say option 2 is the correct way to do it. That way, if your organization goes through a name change or something gets updated, you'll have the ability to update that right through your preferences instead of having to continuously modify the report. Now, one thing a lot of you are probably wondering is, okay, well, I have, a course with 200 people in it. Am I going to have to go to each registration and enable that Get Web Certificate field so that they can go online and print their certificates? Well, the short answer is no. We've come up with a somewhat clever way that we can do this fairly easily, and that's with a handy function called swap val. Now, what we've found is the best way to do this is with the quick reports, the course quick reports certificates area. The advantage is it's going to give you that little people selector box. So when you run the certificate, it's going to say run certificate for all names, or do you want to select by date, or just pick them from a list. And so once your instructor says, okay, this course finished, here's a list of people that passed and their grades, so go ahead and do your thing and enable them to download their online certificates. So what you can do is create this report with a swap val, and that's going to give you an easy way to update that Reg Web Cert field. Now, the magic of the swap val is when it triggers its payload after you exit the preview of the report. So what you would basically do is create a new Course Quick Reports certificate, and it can just be a blank report or just simply a list of names. The report itself isn't what we're looking at. And it's important to mention you're not going to be using the same certificate that your students are going to be viewing when they download their certificate. This is going to be a brand new report that just has that swap val function. So once you run through the course quick report, select your new custom report, and you would call it something like enable online certificates or something like that. When you run that report and close out of the preview, that's going to pop up a box that says, do you want to replace all of the values of this Reg Web Cert field with 1, or however you want to configure it. You could have multiple reports that say, do it for value 1 or do it for value 2, so on and so forth. Once you say yes, it's going to plug a 1 into all of those registrations for everyone that was included in the report, and that basically enables the online web certificate downloads for just those students. So pretty handy. Now, all of this is going to be detailed in the README document in the download, and I believe Sharon actually has it available as a handout. So in your GoToWebinar, there should be a link where you can actually download that. And of course, we're always going to be available as your ACEware technicians to give you assistance with the installation. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Chuck. I think he has some additional comments on further customizations.
I got to unmute myself. Sharon, I'm not come on.
We are hearing you just fine.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. Number one, this is a major upgrade or a major module for ACEweb users, and basically we're going to give every current ACEweb user this upgrade option for no extra cost, part of your regular support, and it'll include the default. And again, customizing these certificates are going to be a matter of using the student manager, like I said, report modification tool, things like moving images around, being able to change the format, the portrait, landscape, you know, adding text to the report should be all pretty basic. If you do not know how to do that and you do require or wish to have a custom certificate for the web, we certainly can help you do that. Just to note that those will be considered a custom report and the custom report fees will apply. And then, of course, if you've got some unique extraneous functions that you're using, really funky functions, those again may require some customizing in order to support those on the web. The only other thing I'd want to highlight, and again, Sharon, I think, has promoted this or shared that with folks before, if you've got any end of year funds and you're thinking you would like to kind of pre-purchase, think of it as credits toward custom report writing, Sharon can get you an invoice for however many hours you'd like to pre-buy and basically allow you to use end of year funds if you'd like to have them in the pocket for assistance with customizing certificates if you really see some ways that you'd like to use this. So I believe that kind of covers my part there, Sharon. And Jason, you must be holding them spellbound because I don't see any questions yet. So Sharon, you wanna take it over?
I will. I'm going to put in one final plug for conference. We will be heading to Atlanta in just a couple of weeks now. If you are registered, watch your email on Monday, and we will be sending a final email your way to kind of help you with that last-minute planning for the event. And if you haven't registered, we would love to have you. There's still time to get you on the list and to see you in Atlanta. So that's my final push for conference, and everybody will also get another email to kind of tell you how you can reach us if you have an emergency while we have our team in the Atlanta area. So with that, Chuck, are you seeing any questions?
Hang on. I've got a question. I've got to figure out how
I don't think
to
it's a question. To me, it looks like an applause. So Jason, Stein, Matthew, you've got a round of applause here for this new feature from some of our customers here. And we look forward to the feedback that you'll give us on how this is working and other report ideas you might have that we might want to think about including. So that's what I'm seeing there. And Jason, Stein, Matthew, anything else to add before we let these fine folks get back to their jobs?
I was just going to mention that this module needs some additional runtime files on the ACEweb server side, and updating a couple of templates and other tables too. So it's not a totally trivial upgrade, so you may want to work with your tech on installing 050 and make sure you get all the report module pieces if that's the route you want to go.
Very good. Jason, Matthew, Stein, I'm seeing more applause from people. So people are looking forward to using this, and the techs are ready to help you get this installed. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to wish everybody a happy Thursday and enjoy your upcoming weekend. And we hope to see many of you in Atlanta. Bye-bye.